Okay. So our next presentation is about a cybersecurity assessment that was done at the big Wuppertal interop, and it's very interesting to see, how well the different manufacturers were able to implement the recommended and required cybersecurity things. So I'm pleased to present Gerben Dierick from VRT in Belgium, and he's going to give us a good rundown of this. I also want to acknowledge his co-authors, Alvaro Martin, who couldn't be here, and Kouadio, who's here in the audience. So feel free to pay attention and then ask questions when they're done. Thank you. Take it away, Gerben.
Thank you. Thank you for sacrificing lunch. I'll not make any. So I'll go through the results of the tests we did in Wuppertal during the JTNM tested. There will be a lot of numbers, percentages, but they are not the main message. So I'll try not to go into too much detail about the numbers. It's about the overall situation, what have we found, what have we not found, and especially what can we recommend so that next time we do this, the results are better. Okay, so I'll start with explaining the test and then go through the results and then try to formulate some recommendations and conclusions. And at the end of the presentation, you'll find more numbers. Feel free to look at them, but we will not go through all of those today. So why did we set up this test? There had been a test before, and so we actually did a more extensive version of the same scan. It was very practical that all the vendors were there in one room. Also very practical that you did not just have a device, because as EBU, as the EBU MCS group, the cybersecurity group, we could ask all the members, let's scan all of the devices we own, and then we would probably have the same wide range of vendors. But now we got them all in one room, and also we got some technical people with them from the vendor. So if we found something weird or interesting, we could go and ask. And so it was very interesting conversations going on. Not everybody. I think everybody realizes that broadcast is becoming IT. Probably not everybody is happy about that, or no, I should rephrase. I am sure not everybody is happy about it. I know at least one person who's not. So it's becoming IT, and because of that, you also get the security problem. With SDI, you could imagine some theoretical attacks through an SDI cable, but it's very theoretical, and once you go IP, it becomes very practical. The device is reachable from anywhere in the building, or sometimes even from anywhere in the world, and that, of course, increases the risk. And we still see, or that's our feeling, that the industry is running as fast as they can to get all the features in, and so security then sometimes is an afterthought, or no thought at all. So we try to formulate some to help in an efficient way to improve the security of the industry, and maybe to go faster than the IT security itself and not repeat all things that went wrong there the last 30 years. We can skip over some of these mistakes. So that's me. And so I did the test together with my Spanish colleague who works for RTVE in Spain, public broadcaster, and Adi, who's here. So we worked together to aggregate the results. You can read the details. So what did we do? Basically, there was the big test setup, and we said, let's not interfere too much. So we stayed behind the router. So we were not in the same layer 2 domain than any of the devices. We stayed behind the router, and we used 4 laptops in parallel that ran automated scans using the OpenVAS scanner, which is an open source product. You can download it this afternoon and start scanning your stuff. So we ran these in parallel, but these scans, they took up to a day and a half to scan one part of the network, so we needed a couple of laptops in parallel. That already happened also at the previous event. I wasn't there, but they used the same scanner. What we try to do now, and that's the two blue people, we tried to also do some analysis. When we got the result from the scanner, we looked at it, we interpreted it, and we validated it, because scanners have a tendency to come up with false positives, and we try to get them out as much as possible. Okay? So quite simple, actually. We didn't interfere with the test, we just sat there and we ran our scans, and then we checked the results. So what did we test? As a EBU cybersecurity group, we have a couple of recommendations published, and one of them is about tests that you can run on your equipment. And so we took a couple of those tests, the ones that we could easily automate, and we ran them on all the IP addresses that we could find. A very important disclaimer is that a security test or a security scan, you can prove that something is not secure when you find the problem. But if after days and days of looking you haven't found anything, you also haven't proven anything. Okay? You cannot prove something is secure. You can prove a little piece of code is secure mathematically, but it's quite complicated. But you cannot prove a device is secure by looking at it. I can only then say, I will sign you a piece of paper that I haven't been able to find a problem in X amount of time. That I can certify. But the 7 billion other people on the planet might be able to do it. Okay? But if we find something, we can tell you, okay, there is a problem. But so proving the absence is difficult. All right, some numbers. We scanned all open TCP ports on the network. This is why the tests took that long. So we scanned, we actually looked for any open port we could find, and for UDP, because it's even slower, we stick to the top 100 most used ports. So it takes quite a while to scan, if you scan all the ports. In total, we scanned devices of 34 people, 34 vendors. We may have missed some because when they went to test, they went out of the network and came back. And so we tried to get every last one, but we may have missed one of them. So 93 devices in total. We found of those, only 70 were actually there to be tested. There was also test equipment. We also scanned the test equipment. The test equipment also wasn't perfectly secured. But we took them out of the results. So if we calculate percentages, they are about the devices that came to the JTNM tested event to be tested. And we took the testing devices. We have also spoken to the people who installed them and told them that there were some issues, but we have not calculated them into the results. Okay. Now, a scanner, it's really nice, it's automated. And so what's the result of such a scan? It's a list. It's a list of issues and a score from 0 to 10. 10 being a very bad problem, 0 being just information. And you also get a score in percentage, like how credible it is. And it only reports, we only included findings that had 80% or more trust level, and then we verified manually whether it was actually the case. And this is very important. If you just scan and then calculate some percentage, you'll have some indication, and you can improve on that, but we actually took out, well, one thing, we got a report, we were kind of in panic, we got a report saying that a Windows 95 device was found by the scanner. It's like, whoa, what's this? That was a false positive. So we actually, that's why we were there. We went up to the device, we said, what is your device? Can we see it? Can we maybe ask you what operating system you are running? And it was a Windows 10 operating system. But because of some weird port that was opened and a weird reaction, the scanner thought it was a Windows 95. We were very relieved. It was not. But that's why it's important not to just take for granted what the scanner outputs. What we also did is, we took the score from 0 to 10, and we sometimes re-evaluated. Some issues we downgraded, say, okay, this is not as bad as the scanner thinks. And some issues we kind of upgraded and said, oh, this is actually a big problem. I'll give you an example. So that's an example screenshot where you see high severity incident, but it's just an example. So why didn't we always agree with the scanner's score? Sometimes you just didn't agree based on technical, if you had TCP port 9 open, which is something that is open by default on some Linux systems. It's a very old thing called the discard service. Nobody uses it, but some Linux distributions still have it open. The scanner said that was a level 10 problem because it's a non-maintained piece of software. We said, okay, it should not be there. Please, if you have it on your device, close it. But there is no known, it's not a known, there's no known attack to go in through that open port. So we said, this is only for us. We went a score from 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 being the worst, and we scaled it down to 2. We said, this is not a big problem. Another reason to reevaluate the score is the context. We know more about how the system will be used, where the system will be used, than the scanner. The scanner just is, it's a device and it doesn't know anything about it. So this could, for example, increase certain problems if you know that this system is meant to be on the internet. And a certain port, you might say, okay, this is not a big problem because when you put it on the internet, there will be a firewall that will block that port. Then you could say it's not a bad. But of course, the main port where the system does what you buy it for, you cannot block it with a firewall. That would be kind of a waste of money. If there is a problem on that port, we would increase the score. Say, okay, this is a, let's say, a web-based device, and if there's an issue in the web server, okay, that's bad because you cannot not use the web server in a web device. Okay, and the last thing we did is sometimes a couple of problems can come together in like the perfect storm of vulnerabilities, and with 2 or 3 problems that each are only like score 5, you can actually completely take over the system. And then we upgraded it to 10. Okay? There is an example here which is actually from the test. We will not disclose any identities, but so there was a box where, because of some problem, we were able to get our hands on any file on the system without logging in. That's already a problem, but let's say it's not game over yet. Depends on what's in the files. But it also had a very easy password, which was not known to the customer. And so, because we could read any file, we could also use the file we could also read the file with the encrypted password. We took that file, we took one of the laptops, and we tried just all possible passwords shorter than 6 characters. And in 1 minute something, we were in. So these 2 vulnerabilities by themselves are problematic, but not a disaster. But the combination of 2 is game over. Anybody can take over your system from anywhere in the world if you put it on the internet. So now to the results. What did we see? On the left side, we have the default score that the scanner produced. And on the right side, it's our scores with the 4 levels. So of course you get a bit of aggregation there. And so in the end, we ended up with about 15% of the problems we found, we qualify them as being really a big problem. And most of the problems, we qualify them as 2, like, okay, not. I will give you some examples. So as you can see, there is quite some work to be done. Careful, I'm not claiming in any way that if you take a device from the IT industry and you scan it, that there's nothing there. That's not what I'm saying. So let's go through the results. Here we kind of grouped, this is not the scanner, that's what we did. We grouped all of the 300 and something, 387 vulnerabilities found. We grouped them into categories. And the main category is encryption misconfiguration. So that's like, then the scanner says, oh, you are only supporting SSL version 3 and not TLS version 2, which is the next. And so there is some known problems with SSL version 3. That's an example of an encryption misconfiguration, or an encryption where you allow the system to choose not to encrypt. So 1/3 of all the issues were with encryption. And here is a very important note. We were actually quite happy with that. Because what the scanner does not list, except in one exception, is no encryption. Because if you have no encryption, you cannot make a mistake in your encryption. But you have a security problem in some scenarios. Only if the scanner could see that a password was to be sent over a certain to a certain protocol, it would report like, oh, there is authentication information being exchanged and there is no encryption. Okay. Unnecessary features, meaning that some, like the example I gave from port 9, so there's stuff running that there's no need for, which is in itself, as I said, most of them don't have an immediate attack ready, but it's something, one day there will be a problem with it, so please disable it now since you're not using it. It is not useful, throw it out. Big issue are default credentials. We could log into a lot of systems with default credentials. I have an extra slide about that in a minute. So absence of encryption, if you send your password to the device without encryption, be it HTTPS for websites, for the web interface, or FTP, or SSH, or whatever, it also got a flag. Some unpatched software, so older versions, I'll give an example later, and also unauthenticated remote access is about the same as absence of encryption, but no authentication. So you could log into the system and it didn't even ask you for a password. So what we will do, with the 18% that we classified as high, we will, and most of them we actually already did at the event. We talked to the vendor and said, okay, we found this problem. We found a way to enter in your device without any password. We can actually hack the device. We showed it, and they know what to fix, and we are in touch to see, and we will follow up on that. Also, we will have a recommendation, if it's R160 or 161? 160. So a recommendation where we will specify how we will follow up. Like, what do we expect from vendors when we find a problem? How can we cooperate? So let's go through the most severe things that were found. So we found one system that allowed you to log in through FTP without any authentication. In itself, that's not a big problem, or that doesn't have to be a big problem, but then other limitations have to be in place. It would mean that if you log in through the FTP, you only get to see a couple of log files, for example, that are meant to be downloaded through FTP, then it's fine. In this case, we could see much more. So there was a problem there. There were some web interfaces without authentication. There were a lot of those. Some of them were configured like that on purpose because it's easier for the people doing the test preparation. So we have identified a couple that actually do not support authentication, so that's a really big issue. In others, if you disable the authentication, okay. In a testing situation, I can understand, but as a customer or as a security, as being responsible for security at a broadcaster, your customers will also do that. They think they are testing their device, which they are when they take it out of the box, they are testing it, and then in a split second, it goes from testing into production, and the password is never added to the system. That's the way it works. So you should protect also your customers by actually not allowing unauthenticated access. Just disallow it. We found a couple of operating systems that are no longer supported, like Debian 7, and so there are no security upgrades for the operating systems. That's not a good idea. If you launch a new product, you should try to at least have a version that is still supported so you can maintain the product for a longer time. We found a couple of directory traversals in the web interface, which means that in the web interface, in some form, you can enter some special characters and move out of the web interface into the file system of the device and download system files that you should not be able to download. So you can escape the web interface directory and take anything you want. Again, it's not. It's a starting point for an attack, and in the end, you will probably get in through that way. Default credentials was a problem, and hard-coded support credentials is even worse. because that means there is a password on the system that the customer doesn't know, the vendor knows, and the vendor thinks nobody will ever know, and they can use it for remote support. One day, this password will somehow end up on the street, for example, because of one of the other issues, that somebody can steal the password from the box, because one of your employees who knows the password leaves and is angry with you, for whatever reason, they can also abuse it. So it's not a good idea to have a credential that cannot be revoked. It's like the TSA, the American TSA, they have this key that can open any luggage to check inside. You can buy that key on the internet. Yeah? So that makes any luggage lock useless. And they cannot revoke it because it's impossible to go to every luggage in the world and change the lock. That's not possible. And we found one that was running a specific version of a web server that has a known exploit that we could attack, but to be fair, it was only known for 1 month, so So this is what we see. So in red you see the most critical problems, in yellow the critical one, and then green and blue are the less severe categories. Important to note, there is no vulnerability in our presentation. This is in randomized order, not in alphabetical order. That would be a security vulnerability. If we would think, oh, let's remove the names, then we're secure. Nobody will know who it is, and you don't randomize the order, then people could just go there to the wall and look at the alphabetical order of all the devices in the test, and they would know who's who. Okay, so we randomized. As you can see, there is a big difference. We shouldn't draw too many conclusions from it because it was only an automated scan with manual follow-up. There was no manual look at. So all the red things we have already talked with the vendors, and they are working on removing those issues. And this is not per device, but per vendor, the average number of stuff we find. Also, this might be a bit dangerous to draw too many conclusions because some vendors have like 4 devices, and these 4 devices are all built on the same platform, which has 4 times the same vulnerabilities, and then they get kind of multiplied. And then a note about the misconfiguration part, but I already mentioned it. So your device should be by default be secure, and you should not allow unsecure configurations because customers will also do that. And then one day they will get into trouble and they will blame you, and it's not good for your PR. But this was already mentioned. So to conclude this part, why is this a problem? Well, because let's maybe switch. What we sometimes got is these replies like, why would anybody attack a multi-viewer? Like, what are you worrying about? Or why would, it's inconvenient, this password all the time, so removed it. You should never put this device in an accessible network. Again, don't trust your customers. They will do that. It should not be connected to the internet. Somebody will do that. That's the way it works. And as an example, also because people don't always understand the way we look at it, we just ran one tool for like 3 minutes, and this is the output. It just tells us these are all the web interfaces that are available on the whole network. And we tried the default passwords already. It takes 3 minutes. Why would anybody hack a multi-viewer? Just because it's there. They're not hacking a multi-viewer. They're just hacking whatever IP address they find. And if they can get in, this multi-viewer might be the hop to somewhere else. The big TV5 attack from a couple of years ago, they came in through a camera robot system. That was their first foothold into the network. So anything, it's a PC. Whatever you put on top of it, it's a PC, and they will use it. And so, what's the threat model? Why would they want to do it? They didn't like what you broadcast. Your devices might be useful to attack someone else. You might not be the main target. It's very often that we see that to attack someone, you go through a vendor, because the vendor already has privileged access. So you first attack the vendor, and then you go through into the network of your main victim. So there's many different ways this could go wrong. So to conclude, what do we recommend? Well, what will we do and what do we recommend? We will follow up on the issues to have them fixed. I think that's the most important thing. We will try to repeat this. I think it was a very positive experience, and I hope the vendors agree. Nobody openly dared to say they didn't like us, but there might be different reasons for that. We invite all the vendors to come to our annual seminar in Geneva in a bit more than a month about security, where we'll go more into detail about how to scan and what the results are. We also encourage you to provide the world with a contact person or a contact address. If somebody finds a problem in your device, that they can contact you to have it fixed. And please make security part of your quality criteria. That's actually the main. It's not just about outputting the right video, it's also about not being vulnerable. Okay, that concludes my talk.
Well, thank you, Gerben. So is the moral of your presentation, don't trust robots? Is that what I heard?
That's part of it, but also mainly don't trust the humans that built the robots.
Yeah. The humans. It's always that way. Yeah. The problem exists between keyboard and chair. Right. Okay. Any questions? Anybody? Okay. That was very good. Thank you so much. And.